I simulated the end of the 2024 Formula 1 season 100 times, and the results are going to blow your mind. This year is becoming one of the most interesting and exciting seasons that we've ever seen. So I used a modified version of the F1 2024 game, and I found a rookie running riot, the real master of the midfield, and who will be crowned the driver's champion at the end of the 2024 season. With 6 races and 3 sprint races left to go, meaning there's still 180 points that can be picked up this season, we have some really intriguing fights left to play out. But before we dive into the simulations, I based the relative performance of each team off a combination of how the team has performed this season, using the official F1 website stats as my foundation, biased slightly towards the last 4 races that we've had after the summer break, plus a few multipliers that increase or decrease the quality of all the teams based on when they're likely to bring in upgrades. For example, we know Red Bull are bringing an upgrade package to Austin. We don't know if it'll work. Of course, I'm trying to make it as close as I possibly could to the ups and downs of a real Formula 1 season with all of its unpredictabilities, but a few of these seasons got even crazier than I was expecting. Starting with the question that everyone wants answered, will Logan Sargeant finish 22nd in a 20-driver championship? The 3 drivers with 0 points so far this year are Zhou Guanyu, Logan Sargeant, and Valtteri Bottas. Zhou actually sits at the top of this trio right now, with his best finish coming right at the beginning of the season in Bahrain, where he finished P11. Logan Sargeant also managed an 11th place finish in Silverstone, whereas Valtteri Bottas has only managed 2 13th place finishes back-to-back in Monaco and Canada. And considering how slow the Stakes Alba car has been in recent race weekends, it's not a surprise that there are 98 simulations where Zhou, Sargeant, and Bottas finish in that order with 0 points between them. Although for all the Bottas fans out there, there were 2 seasons where the Finn managed to drag his car to a 10th place finish, miraculously scoring himself and Stakes Alba a singular point for the season. So in those 2 simulations, Valtteri finishes 20th, whilst Zhou and Sargeant drop down a place each. Taking a step up to the drivers in the lower midfield who've managed to get on the scoreboard this year, and the simulations are expecting a continuation of the chaos that we've seen so far this season. Colapinto has the widest range of possible finishes in the championship standings, as after his electric start to his Williams career and nabbing 4 points in 3 races, he's shown that he's definitely capable of moving up in the standings, as he has more often than not in these simulations, even getting the better of Ocon, Magnussen, Behrman, and Gasly in 6 of the 100 simulations, leaving him with an average finishing position of 17.88. If that isn't worth a full-time Formula 1 seat, I don't know what is, because he will be absolutely buzzing for the rest of the season. Whereas Esteban Ocon probably can't wait for the end of the year so that he can get his move over to Haas, especially as in 56 of the simulations, he fell down 1 place in the driver's standings and only managed to beat the man that he's replacing at Haas on 12 occasions, because Kevin Magnussen held on to 17th place in 57% of the simulations, moving backwards 40 times and only moving up towards his teammate in 3 of the 100 endings to the 2024 season. Although it does go to show just how hard points are to come by at the back of the grid at the moment, unless there's some crazy race incident to come, because Ollie Behrman finished 16th in 83 of the simulations without competing in another race in 2024, which is why Gasly also stayed in 15th for 87% of the simulations, with the Frenchman slightly more likely to fall backwards to 16th behind K-Mag or Colapinto than to actually move forwards, only getting the better of Daniel Ricciardo 5 times. Now, I know that Liam Lawson will now be taking Daniel Ricciardo's place, but I started the simulations when Ricciardo was still in the seat and I swapped it for Lawson, and neither of them had very exciting ends to the season, so I just left their points combined because they finished a very middle-of-the-road 14th on 93 occasions anyway. The much more exciting battle is between the drivers just ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, as we see a Williams, an RB, an Aston Martin, and a Haas all in the mix to finish in the top 10, which could get very tasty. Alex Albon is the least likely to trouble the others, as he does need to make up over 10 points to the 3 drivers above him already, which he didn't manage to do in 93 of the 100 simulations. But for Williams fans out there is a reality where Alex Albon, using this post-summer break spike in form, not only caught and passed Yuki Tsunoda, but also finished ahead of Nico Hülkenberg, finishing 11th in the standings with an insane 32 points. That's 20 points in the last 6 events, having only scored 12 so far this season, only 4 of which came before the summer break. And the reason that Albon has a shot at this is because the 3 drivers above him in the standings have had crazy seasons so far. Yuki Tsunoda started the year brilliantly, but has been very hit and miss since Monaco. Lance Stroll didn't take advantage when the Aston Martin was clearly quicker like Fernando Alonso did, so now he's in this mix. And Nico Hülkenberg has been so close to points on so many occasions, finishing in 11th place 7 times this year. Had they been 10th, he would probably be clear of this group. But they weren't, which means he's definitely in this fight for the rest of the season, and it is all to play for between these 3 for a top 10 finish. And the simulations played out in a lot of different ways. Tsunoda finished in 12th place as he is now in 53 of the simulations, but getting a new teammate inspired him to beat both Stroll and Hülkenberg in 18 runs, so almost a fifth of the simulations. Then when it comes to Lance Stroll versus Hülkenberg, the margins are ridiculously small. Stroll finished in the top 10 43 times to Hülkenberg's 39 times. And Stroll was also more likely to finish in 11th place too, finishing there 42 times, which was 9 more simulations than Hülkenberg's 33. That means Tsunoda's average finish was 11.45, Hulk's was 10.9, and Lance Stroll had the best average finish of 10.73. So the simulations back Lance Stroll over the other 2, but I think these simulations just go to show how close it is going to be and that anything could happen here. Which can't be said for 9th place. The least surprising part of these simulations was definitely watching Fernando Alonso finish the championship in 9th every single time. He really is just racing in a championship all by himself this season. Well over double the points of everybody below him, makes him impossible to catch, but also nearly 100 points off the top 8 makes it impossible for him to move forwards, even in simulations where he nailed the last 6 races. There was a simulation where he finished in the top 5 in 2 of the last 6 races, and it made no difference. He may as well just take the rest of the year off. Which is definitely not the case for anybody in the top 8. As we get towards the spicy end of the grid, there are still quite a few drivers that can swap places. Sergio Perez has dropped down to 8th after his season collapsed post-Monaco, and even though he's found a little bit of post-summer break form, the simulations still have the Mexican finishing 8th in 59 of the 100 simulations. Although with Red Bull bringing an upgrade in Austin, there's still a chance that he could get back in the mix, and in 11 of the simulations, he got the better of both of the Mercedes cars ahead of him. Talking of Mercedes, looking at the stats, George Russell has had the better of Lewis Hamilton for the majority of the season. But that 3-race run just before the summer break, where Lewis Hamilton picked up 2 victories and a podium, where George Russell DNF'd in Silverstone and then was disqualified in Belgium, has really changed the complexion of this battle. And the rest of the season is going to be very interesting between these two, because Hamilton goes into the last 6 races with a considerable lead over his teammate. And according to the simulations, he gets the better of George Russell more often than not. Russell finishes in 7th place 41% of the time, and actually fell backwards more often than he went forwards, only gaining positions 22 times and losing positions 37 times. Whereas Hamilton finishes the season 6th and ahead of George Russell most of the time, only actually getting the better of the man he's replacing at Ferrari on 8 occasions, because Carlos Sainz finished 5th for Ferrari in 91 of the simulated seasons. And considering where the Ferrari car has been in recent weekends, I think it's reasonable to see him ahead of the Mercedes cars. This might be controversial, but I think the most exciting battle still to play out this season is between these two. Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri have been the form drivers over the last 6 or 7 races, and Leclerc did have a little bit of a head start, with Oscar Piastri not having the best start to the season, but Ferrari's mid-season slump and Oscar Piastri's consistency has helped Oscar to catch up. And then since Hungary, we've seen those two finish side by side in almost every race, meaning only 8 points separates them at the moment. But in the simulations, it was Piastri who came out on top more often. The McLaren finished in 3rd place 51 times, whereas the Ferrari only finished 3rd 39 times. But it was often very, very close. And there were even 12 occasions where Piastri or Leclerc finished in 2nd place, but neither of the two ever came out as the world champion. That battle came down to Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. And I'm sorry, fellow McLaren fans, the simulations still side with Max Verstappen being our 2024 World Drivers' Champion. In 82 of the simulations, the Dutchman came out on top, with Lando Norris being crowned champion just 18 out of the 100 times. And in almost all of those occasions, Verstappen had a DNF or a collision with another driver that helped Norris out massively. Although on the flip side, Norris did miss out on finishing in the top 2 on 12 occasions, even finishing 4th twice, so the rest of the season really could end up being all or nothing for Lando Norris. But if Max can just keep doing what he's been doing all season, he should be a 4-time world champion. Although considering how the season started with 7 wins in 10 races, how is it that Norris even has a chance at a title? Well, I go through everything that's led to this drop in form from the Red Bull team in this video here, so click that link and I'll see you over there.